right, here we are. Another update from the mountain. There, that's trees. That's the sky. And there's Los Angeles. You can kind of see it through the smog there. And I don't know if you can hear these horseflies buzzing, but maybe they're excited about this earthquake we had earlier. Oh, there he is. And you can see we got all sorts of tree-like goodness over here, right? It's definitely a tree. And that is Leviathan over here. Ow, damn horsefly. All right, hold on. I think this horsefly has to die. And then I'll get back to you. All right, well, the horsefly is still alive. But was just taking a peek over Leviathan here and was thinking about our talks on 1984, specifically the tragic irony and then the tyranny of the irony, both in the doublespeak and the language that no one ever says what they mean, nobody can say what they mean. There's no, and I guess ultimately at the end of the day, there's no reason to say what you mean. So, you know, everything has been taken from these people and they don't have anything left. There's no outlet, there's no inlet. It's just the party and their dreary lives, right? So everyone is stuck in that world, right? It's contingent upon certain aspects of human psychology, you could say, not just slavery and tyranny, but how they feel, right? And the whole idea is Winston is a tragic hero who everyone's supposed to identify with, yet Big Brother himself, right? If that's just the reality, you know, the reality that's so clear that the state has to, you know, make it clear to Winston what an insane terrorist he is, right? Because his morality is all wrong, his values are all wrong. And then you begin to question, well, what, right? A serious question then. So in that world, Big Brother's correct. Winston is insane. So then what are the ethics and meta-ethics of Big Brother? Because you could say, well, if in the Greek times they didn't see themselves as a separate people, you know, the masters, the slaves, everyone was there. Everyone was a part of that cosmology. The nobility saw themselves as the gods, and the people were, you know, they played their part too. But it wasn't this world where everyone was in actuality shut out and just had the image of belonging, when in reality the whole thing was a psychopathic head job done on these people, right? So it's a big experiment that's been run by this totally designed society. So the idea is, if it was natural, was told in that story is that you know, the oligarchs, the people who own the place, basically figured out how to never relinquish power. And the history told about power in that was that it was normal and natural for civilizations to rise and fall, for people to come and go, for things to die, right? That was just the course of life, and that was natural. And then in theory, everyone looks at that story and says, oh, it's a horror story, it's unnatural. Yet look at the tendency, look at the need. And if you recall, in the story where Orwell specifically makes mention of the Declaration of Independence, you know, he talks about how when it came to a passage like that, that the party couldn't even fix it with doublespeak or any of that. It was just out and out thought crime, right? So you see how things have to change with time, and that's to ensure that nothing changes with time. So the irony and the tyranny is that if apparently to appease those people, to keep that herd alive, to make people feel safe, to give them existence, you know, it had to create this immortal God. And as you know, Winston knows the how but not the why, and O'Brien tells him why. That it's just power for power, right? That again, they figured out how to be immortal. So, you know, then in theory, is that unnatural, or is Big Brother right? Right? You know, again, if that's the world, if that's the reality, if the reality of that world are oligarchs who never relinquish power and perpetual warfare, then yeah, who would be, you know, you would have to be insane to think it's wrong, when the reality and the appearance of it and the power of it should be, you know, as clear as Leviathan spread out here before you, right? Like, you can look down there and you can say what you will about it, but it's there, and it's just, there's nothing anyone can do about it, right? It is what it is. So my question about them is that if that's just the way it is, then aren't they right? Isn't that just their morality? Aren't things going just fine? Didn't all the dice shake out where they were meant to, and everyone's where they're supposed to be? No one's in some place where they're not. Winston imagines the proles rising up or things changing, let's say, and it's like, how or why would things change? That's the whole point. If people figured out how to never let things change, if people figured out how to put a grasp on nature and time and change, and to ensure that never happens in any organic or real sense, how humanity used to, kind of living and dying with the seasons, because you couldn't afford to, like the book illustrates, you couldn't afford to wage a perpetual war because like your kingdom would crumble, right? Like they couldn't do that through most of history because they didn't have the resources or the manpower or the machine power. And today with modern slaves, people who work, taxation, everything else, right? Everything gets its funding, or everything that's needed for the war gets its funding. The people are secondary to that, right? And just like 1984, no different. The people are secondary to that. They seem to be the fuel for the machine, and the machine runs on hatred. And Winston doesn't understand that. And O'Brien says, if you look at it, what the history of events, because remember, it parallels ours. If goodwill burns off, and if goodwill burnt off and nothing was left and no one did anything, and that's just kind of how it all shook out and wound up playing out, then it seems to me that that is or was their history. And that, again, that they're technically where they should be, and that Big Brother technically isn't wrong, right? And that's exactly what O'Brien tells Winston. He doesn't understand why, and it's like, well, why? Immortality, that's why. You don't exist, the individual doesn't matter, reality is statistical. All that matters is the party. All that matters is progress, right? That's the illusion, is that progress is happening. In reality, the reason doublespeak is necessary is because the world is otherwise so dingy, blown apart, falling apart. The family has been completely destroyed and infiltrated by the state, right? And the people have nothing but with the little favors they can curry. And it's just in that, it really does seem like the logical conclusion to a mindset and attitude that thinks it's struggling for existence, right? I've said it before, how could that which already exists struggle for existence? It's just kind of already doing its thing. If we follow Julia was like the most realistic person in that story, because she was the only one who stops ascribing symbolic or inner dreams to things, in the sense that, they hear the bird, and Winston, you see him projecting, and he goes, oh, it's beautiful, he's singing for us. And Julia then goes, no, he's singing for himself, and he's just making himself happy, right? That's why he's singing. Wind's picking up. So Julia says that the bird's singing to make itself happy, but later on, when they actually revisit the subject, and Winston, because they're talking about the nature of reality, if I recall correctly, Winston says, hey, it's just like that bird we saw. It was singing for us or whatever, or singing. And Julia says, no, you know what? I thought about it or whatever. And he was just singing, right? She lets it be. She lets it be as it is, and accepts the fact that a thing is, right? And it doesn't have to be some other way, and it shouldn't be some other way, and it's not mistaken on how it happened. It was actually well designed, you could say. Look at all those straight lines and perfect circles, right? It's very well designed. Phone's about to die, but I found one more view here from a bench, and I came up with one more question. Because the whole story and these questions I've been asking are about morality, ethics, is Big Brother right, is Winston crazy, etc., etc. But the whole point is, if Big Brother exists to make man immortal, to make the party immortal, to make Oceana be able to wage perpetual war, and that's correct and that's normal there, so technically it's the savior of that place, right? The party's the savior of democracy, even though it's technically corrupt, right, by Winston's and the people's standards. But the question then becomes, and the immediate crux of the issue, if we get away from all this and just say, to save man, the party has to condemn man, right? At first, and I guess this is the evolution of Christianity, to save man from the pit, Christianity had to put man in the pit. And then, liberalism and progress, brought a perpetual war to get him out of it, I guess. But that's the question then, you know, is Winston actually innocent? And is Big Brother innocent? Is the party innocent? Who's innocent? Who's guilty, right? These are questions of morals, values, ethics, and judgments, because it's about people and their systems and how they interact and how they relate to one another and how they feel about all that. Anyway, last thought of the day here. Hope the day finds you well, wherever you are, and I'll catch you later. Take care.